Hi ladies, I'm Pidge.
And I'm Moen.
Welcome to the Night Shift Corp podcast. We are two shift-working fantasy book lovers and love nothing more than leaving reality behind for a bookish adventure.
Join us as we go under the mountain to discuss our favourite fantasy fiction tales and the authors behind them.
Come with us to explore the stories, one shift at a time. Hi ladies.
Hi! Welcome back! Wow!
Book 3.
Oh, can you believe it?
I really can't.
Here we are.
I'm both happy and sad.
Same,
Yeah.
because the closer we get to other books, the closer we are to finishing the entire series, which
yeah.
is weird because what are we going to do next?
I don't know.
Well, we do.
We do. I'm saying we don't know for the listeners, but we do.
You don't know out there, but we do. And it's not Fourth Wing.
No, it's not Fourth Wing.
No, because we're very different.
Yeah.
So, A Court of Wings and Ruin. This is an exciting book.
Yeah.
And it's kind of where it's the Order of the Phoenix version of ACOTAR,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yes,
So where it
agree.
gets a bit dark and twisty and, more than just love and love stories and like
Yeah.
fighting over girls. It's the nitty-gritty of war and loss and that sort of stuff.
I'm really excited for this book because it's actually the one that I forget the most about.
Same.
So like when I want to do like an easy, safe reread of a book, book 2 is always what I pick up. Mist and Fury is always my go-to, or Silver Flames.
Yeah.
So I kind of, it's not that I've forgotten what's happened, but I feel like doing an in-depth reread for the podcast is going to be really exciting for me.
Yeah. I feel exactly the same way. And even though I've made my notes for these first few chapters, I haven't read beyond that.
Yeah.
And I can't really remember this book. I think it's probably the book that I skimmed over the most because it's quite large in comparison to Mist and Fury. And also because it's the middle of the story thus far, you just tend to forget the middle more than anything else, don't you?
Yeah, that's right. So Court of Wings and Ruin opens with a prologue from Reese's point of view. And if you'll remember, we've only ever had one other chapter from Reese's point of view previously, which was the second last chapter in Mist and Fury.
Yes.
Essentially, it opens where Reese is describing the final battle after it's been won, which we get some information here because we don't, other than hearing about the final battle and knowing that it was a really extreme tipping point for the Fae versus mortals, we don't actually know a huge amount about it. So Reese describes the battlefield. He describes Ravinia's legion was the one that his legion was fighting against. So firstly, who is Ravinia?
Yeah. Who would know?
I have assumed that she is one of Hyburn's other generals like Amarantha.
Yep.
However,
Quite possibly.
we know Sarah does nothing by halves, so I immediately picked up on this new character who we have no background for and made a note to see what happens to this particular character.
Definitely, because otherwise she would have just said the Legion.
That's
or
right.
A legion, like a name of a legion, not the person's legion.
Exactly. Reese describes that the Loyalists are what Hyburn's army is titled as. So the Loyalists in Ravinia's legion chose to retreat rather than surrender. Now, their own army was too depleted to follow to make them surrender. So the other thing here is Ravinia survived potentially.
Yeah.
If they surrendered, then she's potentially survived. So she could come back into our story later on. We don't know.
Where is she?
Exactly.
Who is she?
Yeah. Now, the Loyalists have a flag of their own. So he describes it as a tusked boar on emerald fabric. And essentially, Reese in this chapter is wandering around the battlefield after it's finished, and he's going through and looking at all of the Illyrian corpses to make sure that they're not any of his friends.
Yeah. He's nervous.
Yeah. He describes that when they were basically being overtaken by Ravinia's legion and help arrived in the form of a Illyrian legion, and he says that he didn't notice any of the faces at all. All he noticed was that a whole bunch of the Illyrians had siphons, which, as we already know, means strength, essentially. Yep. So he noticed a lot of them had siphons, and he just continued to battle because he knew that help was there and that they were strong and ready to fight. He knows that he's unlikely to find Asriel's body amongst the bodies on the battlefield because he knows his dad likes to keep Asriel close to him for spying purposes. Yeah. However, he wouldn't put it past his father to assign someone like Cassian to a legion that is most likely to be slaughtered.
Poor Cass.
Yeah.
He really just does get the raw end.
Yeah. And then that's pretty much it for Rhys's chapter. So small but significant.
Absolutely. It definitely is important information that we file away to discuss at a later date.
Ravinia.
Okay, so moving into part 1 of the book, Princess of Carrion.
Yes. Now, we talked last episode.
We did.
About theories. We talked, last episode about theories.
Bring it.
So I've got a few here with the significance of carrion.
Now, can I just preface this quickly?
Go ahead.
I have been away out of the country for 5 weeks. In that time, a Pidgey has got a Kindle Scribe and she has gone to absolute town with her scribe to make a plethora of notes for your benefit and to my detriment. Because I'm like, yep, she's basically got it all. I've got the summary. I've got the footnotes version of the podcast, basically. So Kindle Scribe, absolutely amazing for what you're doing.
Highly recommend.
Yep. She's also upgraded her microphone setup. She's got a mic arm now, a boom arm. Yep. She's fancy as fuck. So
I think it's more so that I don't have any other friends except you.
She missed me.
So I've been pouring all of my energy into my notes and the podcast while you've been gone.
So everything you've heard of the end of ACOMAF was pre-recorded or bulk recorded and released weekly because obviously we naturally do that, but we had to do a fair bit in order for me to go away and have the content for the weeks I was away. So this is a fresh start because I'm back. Hence why I have a beanie on because I'm freaking freezing because I've been in Europe where it was not freezing.
Yeah.
And so
welcome to hell.
I'm rugged up, but the only thing that is keeping me alight is this theory that we're about to hear. So let's do it.
Oh, wow. I hope it lives up to
Same.
Okay. So carrion.
Yeah.
Carrion. We have heard the Cauldron call Feyre Princess of Carrion back in A Court of Mist and Fury. Do you remember?
I do.
When she touched it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, firstly, carrion is defined as the dead flesh of animals. Did you know that?
Princess of the dead flesh of animals.
This is where the theories come in.
Okay.
When we talk about the Princess of Carrion, I interpret the Princess of Carrion to mean princess of dead things. Or princess of dead and abandoned things, princess of things forgotten, princess of the dead, aka ruler of the dead or ruler of decaying flesh, or ruler of things that have been picked apart, morphed in some way, changed in a different way from simply dead or alive. I don't interpret carrion as referring to her though, because when you say princess or prince of blah, it's not that they are that. It's what they're representing.
Of a place.
Yeah. So I would
Princess
say...
Princess of Wales. Blah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not that the Princess of Wales is Wales.
No.
She is the princess of. So when we're calling her Princess of Carrion, we're not calling her dead or decayed or changed or different. We're calling her the princess of those things. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So that was the first thing. So it doesn't describe herself. It describes the thing that she is ruling over. And as a result of that, it's a thing that she's conquered, like a thing perhaps that she is mortal and then has died and should have become rotten, like carrion, but managed to be reborn into a different body and was no longer rotting or was no longer dead and dead flesh.
Okay. I'm on board.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're
I'm on
with
board.
that?
It doesn't seem far-fetched.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's my theory one.
Yep.
Is that is why she is being called Princess of Carrion.
Sure.
Because of what it is that she has gone through and what she now represents.
Okay.
Theory two.
Have had a lot of time.
Haven't I? So, you know what? So, Feyre was already once called the Princess of Carrion from none other than the Book of Breathings, right before she put both of the book's halves together in Highburn.
Yes.
The book also called her, shortly before that, a sweet-tongued liar and lady of many faces. So, it actually is a theory that I thought about that somehow the book can predict the future. So the title is probably connected as per the other two titles as well. So not only is she Princess of Carrion, she's also sweet-tongued liar, lady of many faces, and it refers to the role that she'll now have to play as a spy in the Spring Court. Thoughts?
I mean, both are realistic and easy to believe and make sense.
Yeah.
So why not?
Theory 3.
Oh, stand by.
If Feyre is the princess, who is the queen?
Yeah, this was my question. So, you know, I can't help but start to feel like these sorts of things in this series are tied into others.
Yeah.
Have you consulted the map out of this?
Yeah, I've looked at it.
Because obviously just checking on the ACOWAR map, but I wondered, you know, like in the intro to Game of Thrones, how like the more you get into the story, the more of the map of Westeros you see.
Yeah, so I don't think the map is any different, but we do learn of some places on the continent, so what they're actually called a little bit later on.
Right.
And so we had learned in book 1 that Feyre's mother had died.
Yes.
However, there's a few things that support my third theory, which is firstly, if Feyre is a princess, her mother must be the queen. And secondly, we now have a cauldron that can resurrect the dead. So it doesn't matter that Feyre's mother is actually dead because she could not be dead as well. With a click of his fingers, she could be back alive again.
There's definitely something about Feyre's mother. The typhus, I don't buy it. I feel like she went away somewhere.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Because he was wealthy. You know, there's a lot of talk about how, well, if he was so wealthy, why didn't he pay for healers? And he could have sailed her across wherever to get wherever for healers and stuff. There is something up with Feyre's mother.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I know there's something there.
I think Sarah's made a really easy decision in leaving that as a loose end so that it may come back later on.
Yeah,
I know
it's a
that
thread.
is a bit of a, that there's sort of threads everywhere that authors can pull and
Absolutely.
bring people back into stories dependent on the situation.
Yeah.
My last theory
Okay.
is that the cauldron was not talking to Feyre and the cauldron was in fact talking to Moore.
Oh.
So Moore is the only female in the series so far that has been referred to as a princess. And Moore, if you remember, was standing directly behind Feyre, so close that Feyre could feel her heat as she touched the cauldron.
Oh, stop it.
That's it. I only have 4 theories.
That's a bomb that you've dropped. I haven't heard this before. I'm excited about that.
Okay. Yeah.
Let us know what you think.
Yeah. So I've talked a lot just about the title of
That's
this part of the
fine.
book. So sorry about
Yeah,
that.
that's fine.
But we can actually get into it now.
So let's get into chapter 1. Feyre's in the Spring Court. She's happily painting a picture of flowers.
Isn't she?
She's trying to pretend like all is fine.
Yeah.
She's where she's meant to be. She's okay. She's doing her thing.
Yeah.
And so she's still got some tats, right?
Yeah.
But she's glamouring them. My favourite character, Ianthe, comes in to try to explain to Feyre that she gave up her sisters to the King of Highburn because obviously Feyre's trying to play very cleverly now.
Yeah. Yes.
Because she has to appeal to these people that she's supposed to love. Ianthe doesn't really fit in to that and she's betrayed Feyre. So the relationship there is very fragmented.
Exactly. And Lucian is having none of it. He actually says to Feyre, she's going to spin a story that you'll want to hear.
Yeah.
Basically, saying to Feyre, she's going to lie and you know that she's going to lie about it. And what are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
Because remembering that Lucien still doesn't believe Feyre's act, that she loves the Spring Court.
Yeah, he's having none of it.
Yeah. And he subtly asks her, where is he keeping her? And referring to Elaine.
Yes, his mate.
In her response, Feyre actually calls Rhys Rhysand rather than Rhys. So she uses his full name.
Yes.
And this is just one of the ways that she is acting.
Yeah.
Because she would normally refer to him just as Rhys, right? But that's too familiar.
Way too familiar.
So, she uses his full name in an attempt to convince others that they're not together.
Yeah.
And she also practices her smile in the mirror.
Oh, this is comedic.
Isn't it?
Because it's very human.
It is, yeah. Yeah.
She obviously doesn't back her acting skills. She's like, this is not Oscar winning.
Yeah.
This is like very B, C level.
Well, she knows that her smile is the most likely thing to give her away.
Yeah.
So Ianthe preaches to Feyre that she's claiming that she believed that Feyre did indeed want to spend the rest of eternity with her sisters. So she did the right thing by choosing them for Highburn to change into Fae rather than some other random that Feyre would then feel responsible for eternity because of her actions.
It's a good theory.
So Ianthe's like, well, I chose your sisters because if I had to choose anyone that you would want to feel responsible for and to be with, I would choose,
She's had time enough to think about what she will say to Feyre. And this, out of all of the things she could have said, is the most believable because you can't argue against it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
She also says that she thought Lucien would be sad if he knew his mate was only human and that he wouldn't get to spend eternity with her, which is such a bitchy move because of his history with women that he has loved and what has happened to those women.
Yeah.
That he has had to see them die. And now Ianthe's like, oh, but I knew that you've been through that before and I didn't want you to go through it again. So I knew that Elaine was a good choice for you.
Yeah. You can't argue against that either.
Yeah, exactly.
But I struggle to think about, obviously it's been proven that Fae and humans can be mated because Rhys felt things prior to Fae returning. Maybe
same with Miriam and Draken.
Maybe the mating bond doesn't particularly snap into place until they're both Fae.
Yeah.
Like how immediately after Elaine is dripping wet from cauldron juice that Lucien's like, you're my mate.
You're mine,
now it's snapped.
Yes.
And same with Feyre and Rhys. Would the mating bond have ever snapped into place had she not turned? We won't know.
No. And it's clearly just a bullshit excuse from Ianthe, right? Because she wouldn't have known that Elaine was Lucien's mate before she was Fae anyway.
Absolutely not. They've had nothing to do with one another.
Yeah, it's kind of worked out well for Ianthe, hasn't it?
Definitely.
Tamlin reveals that as part of his bargain with Highburn, his people would be safe. However, he did send word to everybody to move east as a precaution without actually saying it.
Yeah.
He's also revealed that Highburn's armies would be arriving from the west. So Feyre's got some information here, and more than the east-west information. Tamlin doesn't trust the King of Highburn because their bargain said they would be safe, but he's moving his people anyway.
Yeah, and why would he trust him after the bombshell of, I want the priestesses to rule over the High Lords?
That's right.
That would subsequently have their lives ended.
It's a very fragile little bargain, isn't it, between them?
Ridiculous. Just before, we move on, Feyre has a new bedroom.
Yes, she does, yeah.
So the old one, fucked.
Yeah.
Completely
she describes
trashed.
it as looking like a tomb, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Like overgrown vines and
it is because that part of her life is a tomb because it's dead.
Yeah.
Tamlin hasn't quite clicked onto it yet though.
No.
So she stays opposite Lucien.
Yeah.
Now.
Tamlin also chooses now to bring up the fact that Jurian will be arriving tomorrow.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah. And Feyre's like, oh, fucking hell.
Yeah, they're coming to survey the wall and things.
That's right. So we move into chapter 2 and Feyre realises that Tamlin and Lucien aren't bothered by the fact that the king has the cauldron or that he plans to use it to break the wall. Because remembering they are Fae, and the fact that they're okay with him re-enslaving the mortals and removing the wall. Feyre's like, you're joking.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you did all this to get me back, but you're still going along with it.
Yeah.
Feyre finds out that the cauldron was actually drained after turning her sister's fae.
Yes.
And I had to think about this section do you remember when Nesta came out of the cauldron and Feyre described that there was something different about her, that there was something dangerous and terrible in her eyes? Did Nesta take too much from the cauldron?
Yeah, I am right there for that. I think she did. I think even she comes to know that herself, Nesta.
Yes.
So basically Feyre's mindset now is to how long is it until Cauldron works again?
Yeah.
What's it going to take?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much does it need to take down the wall?
Yeah.
Because we're talking we've turned 2 people fae.
Yeah.
And it's now exhausted.
Yeah.
And is that why the human queens
aren't
good? Aren't well?
Yeah.
It was the cauldron too tired.
Love that.
Yeah. Tamlin reveals that Durian will be arriving with 2 other Highburn commanders.
Yeah. Oh, twinsies McGee, huh?
Well, they're your mates.
They are my mates. Yeah.
We've been introduced to my mate for a few episodes now, the King of Highburn.
Yeah.
Your mates have now come along.
My mates. And this is classic don't remember ACOWAR because when we did that mating, I was like, who the fuck is that?
Yes.
The twinsies, male and female. So my mates are here with the same ruddy hue and inky black hair, Dagden and Branner.
Dagden and Branner.
Yeah.
Right. Gee,
I thought I'd say that for for you because I knew you were going to be like,
I'm not good.
Get the Google out.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Yes.
I thought we had a guest on the podcast when I heard someone else in my ear.
So Feyre has used the bond once since she's arrived back at the Spring Court, but, she is relatively new to magic, so she's not quite sure if using it will trigger some sort of alarm or something, so she uses it very, very sparingly.
Yes.
She says to Rhys, I am safe and well. I'll tell you what I know soon. And then she asks, are they alive or hurt? Rhys's reply is, I love you. They are alive. They are healing. He doesn't respond to her thoughts about where she says, I'll tell you what I know soon, which is just an indication that Rhys doesn't give a shit about what information she does or doesn't get. He's just concerned about her.
Yeah. Is she okay?
Yeah.
And she's not really ever going to be okay because she's living a lie.
That's right.
And he knows that at some point she's going to have to do things with Tamlin to make it seem like she's genuine or she's going to have to get out.
On my first read, I automatically thought that she was asking about Cassian and Asriel.
Oh.
However, on my reread, I realised that probably not only is she referring to Cassian and Asriel, but she's also referring to Nesta and Elaine.
Yeah.
What did you think when you read when she says
remember.
them? Are they?
I can't remember. I think if I'm thinking about it now, maybe all of them collectively.
I think so too.
She cares not equally, but almost equally about them. I would argue she cares more about the outcome of Cassian and Asriel for Rhys's sake. But I think collectively, all 4 of them, everyone together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tamlin expects Rhys's scent to fade from Feyre. So because of the mating bond, he expects that his scent will disappear. Little does he know.
Yeah.
So he expects it to disappear in the next following weeks or months. So she only has that long before they would start to get sus about it not fading. So she has a shelf life in the Spring Court in which to fulfill her duties before she's got to leave.
Yeah. So Durian's arrived with these 2 commanders, they're twins, and introduces them as Dagden and Branner, the niece and nephew of the King of Highburn.
Yeah.
He's not French. I don't know why. Yeah, and they're going to share a room.
Yeah, creepy and incestual. Thank you.
Definitely giving Cersei and Jaime Lannister.
Yes, yeah.
Watching Feyre perform. Nobody knows she's performing, but Feyre does.
Yeah.
And she's working very hard to convince Tamlin that she loves him. She's obsessed with the Spring Court.
She's also working super hard to piss off Durian.
And why
Did
not?
you notice, like, when Jurian walks up the stairs to enter the manor and he says the twins are curious about Feyre because a war was started over a female with such talents. And Feyre responds to him, well, perhaps if you'd bothered going to war over Miriam, she wouldn't have left you for Prince Draken.
Ooh, burn.
Such a burn.
Yeah.
And Jurian is so pissed and he says, careful what you say, girl. And Feyre just responds with, or what? You'll throw me in the cauldron.
That's awesome.
I'm loving her new snarky personality.
Yeah.
Loving
she
it.
doesn't have to be nice to him. She's got no love for him.
Exactly.
And like Tamlin equally doesn't suck up to Jurian.
No.
So there's no need for acting in that part of her life.
Well, we're still not really sure what Jurian's role is. We come to find out in a few chapters' time, but right now we're not really quite sure why Jurian is still working for the King of Highburn.
Yeah, he's the awkward middleman.
Isn't he? Yeah.
Feyre does observe these twins to have an odd relationship. She very much sees Dagden yielding to Branna's every whim, if you like. And they...
like serving her food and stuff.
Just all the things. Very attentive, and attentive without asking for it. So Feyre actually thinks they're diamarty because she observes them.
As if they're speaking into each other's
They're
mind.
definitely silently communicating.
Yeah.
So she's like, they must be diamarty, like her and Rhys. And so she's got her guard up.
After she observes him feeding her, creepily, Lucian gets asked by Jurian who made his replacement eye.
Oh, yeah?
And Lucian says that he has an old friend at the Dawn Court who is skilled at blending magic and machinery. And he refers to her as a she and says that Tamlin got her to craft it for me at great risk. And this comes back in a little bit later and confirms something that I've been a little bit sus about with Lucian's eye.
Dawn Court, you say?
Yeah. Dagden reveals that after the final battle, they actually cut off and kept any fallen Illyrian's wings as trophies as well. And Rhys had previously told Feyre that Tamlin's father had cut off and kept his mother and sister's wings. And Feyre had remembered this and already tried looking for them in the manor, but she couldn't find them. And Jurian tells Feyre that he and Rhys had fought side by side and he said he must have told you where he hid Miriam and Draken. And Jurian is just obsessed with finding Miriam and Draken, isn't he? Like
One
any
mission.
opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's all he can think about.
Yeah. Feyre feels the twins trying to control Lucian and Tamlin's mind over dinner that night.
Yep.
And so she casts out her diamarty powers like a net to protect them, essentially.
Yeah.
She reaches towards the minds of the twins and finds a wall of white bone, which is the same colour as the Highburn castle as well. And in protecting their minds, Feyre has now just revealed her powers to the twins because they feel her doing that. So she realises that Jurian also must have already used the cauldron to try to resurrect Miriam, but was unable to find her amongst the dead. Ooh. Which confirms what Jurian has been seeking, which is that Miriam is indeed alive and not dead. I thought maybe Jurian still loved Miriam and that's why he was trying to resurrect her. And part of me thought, I wonder if he's actually a nicey that's pretending to be bad like Rhys.
Yeah.
Just to get his love back.
And that's the thing, right? Because Miriam cares not for him.
Yeah, clearly.
So what's he going to do? Like it must be spite at this point.
Yeah.
Or to hurt Draken or whatever.
Yeah. I had hoped.
Yeah. So getting into chapter 3, Feyre has inherited this curse-breaking ability, like somebody else we know, from Helion. Okay, Day Court High Lord. They're off to the wall to find this first hole, if you like.
Yep.
Lucian says he doesn't know how they were made. They just kind of appeared over the centuries. And he says there's 3 in total and that one of them is off the coast somewhere.
Well, that's the one that they used to get to Nesta and Elaine's mortal estate. 2 on the ground, 1 over the water.
Yeah, they're all very hard to travel to and obviously hard to locate if you don't know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And you cannot winnow directly to them.
Yeah.
So, it takes a bit of trekking. Feyre asks what side of the first war Lucian would have fought on if he was alive back then. He says he would have fought on the Human-Fae alliance. Lucian tells her that he beat Tamlin back to the manor the day that she left. He found no trace of her except the melted ring.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually got rid of it before Tamlin could see it.
Yes.
Their relationship's still complicated, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because
and it only gets more complicated.
it does.
Yeah.
Right. So besties.
Yeah.
To fuck you. You're not sticking up for me, bestie. To, oh my God, get away from me.
Yeah.
I don't want him. To, okay, you know what I'm doing, but I'm not going to let you know that I know what you're doing.
Yeah. Yes.
And now this kind of mutual understanding of what's going on, still able to talk openly and honestly with one another, but both playing a game, and sisters and brothers-in-law.
Did you know that the first hole in the wall is where Feyre came through?
I didn't.
So it's said that the holes are where beings of great power have entered Prythian.
So did she make it?
I was a bit confused because Tamlin brought her through and he's obviously come through a hole.
Yeah.
Right? So I was a little bit confused about that, but it just happens to be the same spot.
Yeah.
Is that coincidental that some huge powerful being came through and then she's used that same spot? I wonder who that was. The 3 is what gets me because, you know, it's always 3,
always
isn't it?
3.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I thought it was interesting.
The other thing that's interesting about this particular hole in the wall is that it's kind of right there. Like it's right.
It's the closest one. Yeah.
Near her village, near the spring court. Like it's kind of like the gateway to the 2 worlds, which is very conveniently placed between Feyre's world as we knew it and Tamlin's world as we know it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the location of the other 2 holes. So the next one is 2 days and the other one is 2 more days.
Sure.
And Feyre questions the twins around whether they should winnow most of the way. And we find out that Brenna can't winnow.
Oh.
Yeah.
But he can, but Dagden can.
Yes, that's right. So he takes her with him, which is, another, you know, he's feeding her, he's winnowing her around the place.
Is she damaged? Is she like the lesser twin? Twins in Fae, surely very
rare.
Very rare. Something about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So they return to the manor.
Yep.
After looking at the hole in the wall, and Ianthe arrives yet again to make her grand re-entrance over breakfast the next day. Yep. Neither Durian or the twins show much interest in her, but she does begin to wonder if the twins prefer only each other's company, and I quote, in whatever unholy capacity.
Yuck.
Yeah. She literally said out loud what everyone was thinking at this point.
Yeah. If you're a twin, a male-female twin in real life, you'd be pissed at the amount of time people carry on about twincest.
Yeah.
In fantasy, like in, you know, like the Game of Thrones. And like this is obviously prevalent.
Yeah.
It would be annoying.
Yeah, indeed. Lucian is super tense around Ianthe, and he admits to Feyre that he had to replace Tamlin during the Calanmai rites and that Tamlin had refused to participate so Calanmai happened while she was in the Night Court. And it got me thinking that, firstly, does that mean that anybody can complete the rite? Because my understanding was it was the High Lord and someone who is chosen and they create the magic that is required for the spring court for the rest of the year. So there must be some sort of process where Tamlin's able to transfer power or something to somebody else because Lucian completed it. Or, here's a theory for you. Is it that only High Lords are able to complete the rite? And technically Lucian is.
Oh, stop it. Yeah, so we all know that Lucian is Helian's son.
Yep.
I think is destined to be a High Lord of, I'm going to say Dawn. I don't believe that he's going to be this spring court High Lord.
No.
Because I don't think Tamlin will die. That's just my feeling. I think that Tamlin will have some sort of redemption arc. I think that Sarah needing to have a happy ending. I don't think she's going to leave someone who's not altogether evil as hated as Tamlin is.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to have some sort of redemption. And I don't know if it has to do with a sister or
Let me add to the theory.
good?
Why did Tamlin not choose somebody else or Lucian to do the rite the first time at Callanmai when Feyre was in the Spring Court as a mortal? Because remembering Tamlin is trying to woo her at this point, right? As part of the prophecy, he was to woo her, and he was trying to, but he had to complete the rites and he had warned her to stay inside, blah, 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 blah. You would think if you were trying to woo someone, you wouldn't go and sleep with somebody else. If there was ever any time to offload that duty to someone, wouldn't it have been then?
Maybe you only get a certain amount of proxies.
Maybe.
Did Lucian complete the rite, because Tamlin was absent?
He just said he refused.
He refused. Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Feyre feels guilty as hell because she wishes that she was there to stop it, because Lucian had to complete the rite with Ianthe.
Yeah, which is... Ugh.
Yeah, which
And
there's a
poor
lot of
Lucian.
history there where Feyre knows that Lucian has never liked Ianthe, even before all of this, has never ever liked her. So,
And she's pined for him.
That's
She's
right.
tried to woo him, so to speak.
your favourite character comes back as well.
Yeah.
Alice.
I know. She's so cool.
Yeah, I do like her in this chapter.
Yeah.
So she's helping Feyre pick a dress, and she tells her that they can't be taken out and that she'll have to order new ones.
Fab.
Yeah. And Feyre knows that Alice sees the lack of torture that she's suffered, right? She's claiming to have been tortured and it's been awful and terrible. You would think she would have lost even more weight than she had last time Alice had seen her. But in fact, she's actually looking much better and much healthier.
Trim, taught, terrific, happy, rested, all the things.
Yeah.
She knows, she tells Feyre that she begged more to take her out.
Yes.
She was there that day. She remembers it. She tells Feyre this.
Yeah.
She lied to Tamlin. This is huge.
Yeah. And Alice is not backwards about coming forwards. So when they're talking about her outfit for solstice, she storms over to the dresser and pulls out a set of night court clothes that Feyre had left there. And she's like, maybe you should wear these.
Love that.
She's not subtle.
No. It's interesting that she will test her loyalty to Tamlin when Tamlin is the one that is essentially looking after Alice.
And has
for
offered them protection.
many years, and for the sake of the two boys, right? So that's all Alice lives for, is these two boys who frolic
her
around the Spring
nephews.
Court. Yeah. And she's outwardly lying to Tamlin to protect Feyre. And I truly think it's because she knows that Feyre is innately good and helped her when Tamlin had fucked off, basically.
Alice reveals that her cousin is a servant at Adriata and that she saw Feyre there, happy and healthy. Yeah. When I read that, I also thought, I wonder, does Alice know, if she knew Feyre was at the summer court, does she also know that the book was taken? Because you remember that Rhys, Amren and Feyre just winnowed away with no further word to the summer court.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, what did Tarquin tell everybody
Surely.
about what had happened? Do this, and she had said, all the servants talk and they're not seen, but they definitely hear things. So does Alice know that Feyre stole the other half of the book from the summer court? She actually says to Feyre, they say you came back different, came back wrong. I never bothered to tell them that I think you came back right. Came back right at last. I think Feyre knows that Alice knows what she knows.
Oh, yeah. And I also think that there's not a soul in the summer court or the spring court or any court for that matter in a servant capacity or a housemaid capacity that doesn't know the ins and outs of what the hire are doing. Every other hierarchy and
The higher
slave.
Fae and lesser Fae.
The servants whisper. They know all the things. If blood rubies have gone out,
They would know.
they're knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Alice begs Feyre to leave her boys out of any retribution that she has planned. Feyre continues to play dumb and agrees to wear pure white, a bride-like dress for solstice.
Ooh. She's doing it well.
Yeah. And solstice day arrives. Ianthe wants to have a ceremony to give thanks before the celebration starts.
I mean, doesn't it just sound like as boring as a Sunday morning at church?
She's making herself important by having these stupid things like celebrations and thanks and prayers and blah, 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 blah.
Nobody cares.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Feyre wonders what the summer court do to celebrate and if Tarquin had heard about her change in circumstance. As far as she is aware, Tarquin never sent word about her visit to the summer court to Tamlin. And that's interesting because she did receive a blood ruby from them. So surely if Tarquin's mad enough to send a blood ruby to Feyre, surely he would have been mad enough to dob on her. Apparently not.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
The sun rises at morning ceremony. Ianthe raises her hands expecting the light to hit her, but Feyre has moved the stone that Ianthe uses to mark where she stands.
Yes. Yep.
Instead, Feyre uses her light power to make herself glow and make it seem like she's the one that's being blessed.
I love the way that she has ruined this ceremony and the way that she's set herself up.
Yeah.
Because not only did she do that, she worked with Ianthe to basically remove Tamlin and the twins from the front row seating.
Exactly.
So I think she got the twins up to drink the blessed wine and then Tamlin has to get up because he's the High Lord, of course, so, he's got to stand up.
Yep.
And so she essentially plans it so it's just her and Lucian sitting or standing together in the front row. So when the sun rises and it shines upon her, Lucian gets down on one knee like she's a newly minted god. And what's even funnier is that Lucian knows that Feyre worked with Ianthe on this ceremony. So he knows that she has planned this.
All of it.
And it is just feeding into what he already knows, which is that Feyre is faking the fuck out of this situation.
She is.
Yeah.
Feyre in this situation is the wedding guest wearing white to the wedding.
Yes, that's right.
Amazing.
The festivities start and Tamlin's acting a bit strange after the ceremony because of Lucian's declaration to Feyre. We know that Feyre's loving to play on Tamlin's weakness, which is he has always suspected that there's something between herself and Lucian, and Feyre is loving playing that card.
She really
and
is.
Today is just a perfect example of it, and Tamlin's rattled by it.
He absolutely hates this.
Yeah. Ianthe's tried to explain the blunder away, saying that the Cauldron chose her blessed friend as a sign of how glad it was for her returning to the spring court. And she goes back to her room after the ceremony.
So she manages to have a little convo with Rhys down the bond at this stage.
Yeah. I love these little
It's good.
little
It's
nuggets.
like a little texty.
Yeah. Yes.
Are you okay? Is everything all right? He asks Feyre, when are you coming home? And all she can say is soon. She's a warrior and he knows that wars aren't won with just swords and intel is really important, and he knows that she just really has to do this for herself, for her sisters. She needs retribution.
Yeah.
And this is the only way that they really have an edge. So they're going to ride it.
Celebration afternoon turns into night. Feyre looks up at the stars and she feels as though they are the only ones that are keeping her company tonight, and she essentially misses her night court. She heads to bed at 2 a.m. I mean, we've all been there, but
Not lately.
she has a nightmare and heads across the room to seek support from her good friend Lucian. He answers quickly.
Yes, but what's she wearing, please?
She's deliberately worn a white lace teddy that barely contains her breasts.
A little negligee, if you will.
Do you remember that episode on Friends where Phoebe knocks on the door and she's like, oh, I do wear a black lace teddy that barely contains my breasts. It's exactly what I thought of when I read this chapter.
Oh, my God. I love it.
So he answers quickly, saying that he heard her shout and he lets her inside his room. She feigns that she is distressed after her dream. And Lucian doesn't object when she leans into him for a cuddle. She uses her power at the same time to detect a slight vibration/movement in the house. And whilst Lucian's hugging her back, I had this thought where I was like, these guys are besties. And they're not right now.
No.
But it's very clear that Lucian knows what Feyre's doing but hasn't said anything.
Yeah.
And that Feyre also can't leave Lucian alone.
Yeah.
As in, we also see it in a few chapters' time that she just can't help herself when it comes to him. She's really emotionally attached to him and not in a relation, like a mate kind of way.
No.
But I actually think that they are just ride and die. Like they're family.
Like
he's
bro and sis. Yeah. Definitely.
Like he's part of her family and neither of them can stomach ratting each other out or doing anything wrong to each other. So he gives her a really lovely hug. Yeah. Like he strokes her hair and sort of murmurs softly to her and stuff like that. Like a family member would.
Yeah.
If you were to give them a cuddle.
I think that a lot of the time Lucian is actually probably a bit perturbed by his loyalty to Tamlin for no real good reason anymore.
That's right.
He's probably had enough. Like Tamlin's conspired with the King of Highburn to get Feyre back. Lucian's just acting out of loyalty and I don't think he agrees with anything Tamlin does anymore. Yeah. So I think his loyalty will sway quickly.
Feyre uses her water manipulation powers to create tears as well, which is quite great.
Epic.
And Tamlin arrives and Feyre deliberately pushes Lucian away, trying to make it look like they were interrupted during a moment together. And Lucian is just as awkward as he didn't hear Tamlin coming up the stairs. Feyre did though.
If you didn't feel a certain way about someone but you were caught in that scenario, you would act weird if you were caught.
Yeah.
Like there's no explaining like, oh, we're just, no. It looks dodgy.
Feyre leads Tamlin from the room before he shreds Lucian to ribbons, and she takes his hand and leads him into the hall, but then lets go of his hand and continues into her room and shuts the door.
Love it.
Yeah. And
I wish I could do that.
Yeah. And Feyre wonders if Lucian had yet put it all together, the pieces of how she'd crafted this performance to prey on Tamlin's worst fears. That's it for this episode of the Night Shift Court podcast. Join us again next week where we will continue the adventure of ACOTAR's Book 3, A Court of Wings and Ruin.
Whichever platform you're listening on, we would so appreciate a 5-star review. You can follow us at The Night Shift Court on Instagram, TikTok and Facebook.
I hope the night is kind.